As we get older, I believe that most of us forget that we came into this world knowing nothing. Every belief, value, word, and step taken has been something learned through trying again and again from the unknown. From learning to walk to being where you are now, every version of you started with stepping into discomfort first. I mean, if you think about why kids are so fearless, when they fall, there's only about 3 feet between them and the ground. They get up and go without a second thought. But as we get older, that distance grows, and so does our fear of falling. The stakes feel higher, and we start calculating the risk of what it means to mess up. This fear is what prevents us from even trying. We start calculating outcomes. We weigh the risk of embarrassment, failure, rejection, and more often than not, we decide it's safer to not try at all. However, despite fear making the cons of taking a risk feel larger, the pros greatly outweigh them. If you look back at any moment where you have felt proud, I'd bet that what led you there was scary and filled with uncertainty. Most things that end up being important in your life starts with not wanting to do them. Fear is our biggest disabler. My first memory of real accomplishment was at age 7. My dad had signed my sister and me up for a local track meet. My last event, unknown to me until it was time to go, was the 600 meter. I had never ran it, heard of it, or seen it, and to 7-year-old me, this was the worst thing imaginable. A mystery race with no finish line in sight. I remember waiting for my heat, being cooled up, and running the race with dried tears on my face. I ended up running for 8 more years after that. Track became a pillar of my life from ages 5 to 15, where my coach's favorite saying that you will never go in your comfort zone was heard at least twice a week. I remember he used to say it not like a motivational quote. He always said it like it was a fact, like he was telling us that the sky was blue and we could take it or leave it. I think that he would be glad to know that it stuck with me. However, my point was not that I ran that race. It was that I could come out on the other side of something scary, fine, and most likely better than before. Growth doesn't come from feeling ready. It comes from choosing to act even when you're not. That same idea was proven again last summer. Last year, like many of you probably are now, I was busy applying to jobs all over. Restaurants, summer camps, retail, anywhere. 3 days before last year's closing ceremony, I got an email from a company up north. The offer was to leave the following Sunday after prom and head up to live in a staff house until school started again. It was my first job and my first time living alone in a town that I had never been to with people I had not yet met, with 3 days to decide. I came so close to saying no that I had an email already written. However, after a little encouragement, I deleted it. That Sunday, I woke up, I bought sunscreen and bug spray, and I packed the car and drove 3 hours up north until the road started to wind between lakes and the houses became more sparse between the long grass fields and rocky landscape. It was one of my favorite summers, and I would never have known those roads or those people if I had not taken that step. It's easy to recognize fear in big moments like those, but just as important to recognize how it lives in the small ones too. Not asking that question, talking to that person, and not applying to give a chapel speech, which I almost didn't. Those moments are what build us to have the confidence to make the big decisions. A lot of people fall into the idea that confidence comes first, that one day you'll wake up and you'll just feel ready, when in reality, confidence can only come from making the choice to face fear, even in the little moments, and accepting that sometimes you have to figure it out along the way, and it won't always go right, but there is always benefit in trying. I've seen that in a smaller and more personal way for the things that I make. I've always liked photography, making videos and different kinds of art, not in any professional way, but just in the sense that I enjoy creating things and putting ideas together. But for a long time, I kept most of it to myself. Not because I didn't think it was good enough, but just because I didn't want the attention that came with sharing it. I didn't want people to judge it, or even worse, have anything to say about it at all. There's something uncomfortable about letting people see something that you've made. It feels personal in a way that's very hard to explain. Once it's out there, it's no longer just yours. But when I did start sharing it, it wasn't always received the way I expected. Some people just didn't get it, sometimes it didn't land, and sometimes it did, and sometimes people loved it. But no one's reaction was the point. It was that I chose to share it anyways, and I became a person who was less and less controlled by fear. Even facing fear in the little moments, like choosing what can be seen, is much easier said than done, and I believe it to be one of the hardest parts, is being able to recognize when you are in your comfort zone. In March of this year, I had started reading a book filled with a small collection of essays, one titled Goodbyes Will That had stuck with me. The author writes about her life in New York and her slow realization that despite how much she once loved the city, she had gotten all that she needs out of it. She writes that it is easier to see the beginning of things and much harder to see the ends. And later, with the realization that it is entirely possible to stay too long at the fair. No matter how nice and trouble-free something is, when you have outgrown it, you have outgrown it. The fair only has so many rides. The hardest part is that staying still sometimes doesn't feel like an active choice. Comfort is quiet, and you don't notice when you've stopped growing until you're well past the point where you should have moved, as the author had discovered. Recognizing when you've overstayed somewhere, a place, a version of yourself, a way of thinking, takes a kind of honesty that is hard, because it's not only about having the courage to leave, but also the willingness to let go of both who and what you are now in order to become who you could be next. And that is difficult to do alone. That type of honesty doesn't happen in isolation. Being able to step outside of your comfort zone starts with the people around you, and believing that if you do fall, someone will catch you, or at least help you up. When I was deciding to take that job, my mom didn't push me either way. She didn't try to convince me. She just made it clear that no matter what I chose, it was my decision and it would be okay. That didn't remove the fear, but it made the decision feel possible. And that's what support really does. It doesn't make things easier, it just makes them doable. During my time here, that support has changed the shape of my decisions. I made choices not from who I already was, but who I could become. Wanting to make the decisions and actually making them requires a belief in who surrounds you. It's a lot easier to be brave when you feel like someone has your back. So just as much as we need to step outside of our comfort zones, we also need to be the kind of people who make it easier for others to do the same. Because sometimes a small amount of support can be the difference between someone staying where they are and becoming who they could be. Like many of you, I would probably call myself a procrastinator. And with that comes hearing the words, "just do it," about 1,000,000 times a year. It's simple, almost frustratingly so, but there's a reason it gets repeated. Because at some point, thinking stops helping, and action is the only thing that can move you forward. The only way to feel the value of it is to have done it, even just once, and I know we all have. Your life is a collection of decisions about who you could become. When people have asked me how I feel about graduating this year, I start with something along the lines of that I'm sad to leave, that I'm gonna miss Appleby, boarding, my friends, the campus, all of which are true, but that I'm also ready to go. Those two things don't cancel each other out. I love Appleby, but like the fair, and like New York, and like the comfort of having a summer doing nothing, there's only so many co's, sports, and years we can spend at this school. And whether you're in grade 10, 11, or about to graduate, those moments don't stop. Every day you're presented new versions of the same choice. Stay where you're comfortable or step into the unknown. In 43 days, I don't get to choose whether I leave this place. That part is happening either way, but I do get to choose how I leave it. I can hold on to what's comfortable for as long as possible, avoid what's next, and step into it reluctantly. Or I can choose to meet it head on, knowing that it is uncertain and knowing that it's going to be uncomfortable. Because it's never been about being ready, it is about choosing to step forward anyway. I now invite you to all stand and sing hymn 656.